Hello, and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz. And during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to highvoltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at highvoltleadership. Fantastic. Okay, so today on the Female Founder Friday podcast, I have Amber with me. Amber, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the show. I'm super grateful to have you here.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I am super excited for this conversation. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to just jump in and start with you, sort of talking us through your journey to being a female founder. What did that look like?
It kind of happened accidentally, or at least I didn't intend on it, really.
Yeah.
I am a female founder of a PR agency. I always knew I wanted to be in PR from when I was around 16 years old. I pursued it throughout college, went through it after I graduated, and after a year, I kind of changed my mind. So I originally fell into love with PR because I loved the creative aspect of it, the campaigns, the working with the influencers, the pitching. And the one job that I was working at post grad, it was great. It taught me so much. And I honestly carry so much of what
Yeah.
I learned from there into my agency now. But I felt like the clients we were working with were huge. People already knew who they were. We didn't have to do too much. I really wanted to get down and dirty, build out these campaigns. How can we make this brand huge? And because the brand has been around for decades, it didn't really matter. So after a year of working at that agency, I ended up quitting and decided to figure out what is the next move. I was lucky that I was living at home during the pandemic and I had the luxury of kind of taking the time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so while I was in the midst of finding a new agency to work at, I actually decided to test out freelancing. I was like, in the meantime, let's see what happens. I'll just freelance on the side, some extra money in between jobs. And so I started working with this one Indo-Western fashion label, Holy Chic, and they kind of just transformed my whole pathway afterwards. We
Wow.
worked with each other for like 8 months. I think this was February 2021. We started working together.
Yeah.
And I was actively still looking for a job, but still we were working together. I brought on a few clients as well. And then September 2021 happened, New York Fashion Week. I connected with so many incredible South Asian women and just creatives and just women in general,
Yeah.
where it kind of put me in a place where you're in a really good spot. Should you move forward with this? Do you continue with a full-time job? And I was like, you know what? I'm 24 years old. And after my mom and my brother both talked to me and were like, Amber, why are you even questioning this? They're like, just do it. You have nothing to lose. You can always go back and get a full-time job if this fails. And so October 2021, I decided to fully launch the agency. And now, I guess a little over a year and a half later, here we are.
I love
And that's
it.
kind of how I fell into it.
No, but okay, so I really I really love that your mom and your brother really talked you in to doing it.
Mhm.
Like you weren't quite certain. And I think for so many of us, this is important. For a lot of us as female founders, it's our own inner voice. It's that saboteur
Mhm.
that kind of tries to convince us that we can't do it, that we're not smart enough,
Mhm.
we're never going to get enough clients, we're not going to make enough money, blah, 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 blah. But I really love that your family rallied and they saw your potential even more than you did.
Yeah, it was definitely a really big contributing factor because I was always focused on like that wasn't like the normal thing to do. I'm new to this space. It's unstable. And they're like, who cares? You can always go back to the corporate world. And I think about that now. I'm like, now that I'm even 18 months in, if I want to stop and I'm like, I'm done, I don't want to make any more big decisions. I want someone else to tell me what to do. I can always just go back and get another job. It's not the end of the world. And I think that's something that I've really learned along the way.
Yeah. So yes. And I think what's really important, if you're listening, first of all, you can go and start your own business and you can go back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very minimal risk in that sense. I think the other point is, if you do decide at some point running your own business is not for you and you do go back to the workplace, you don't have to feel badly about that. You get to take
Mm-hmm.
with you everything that you've learned along your entrepreneurial journey. So whichever decision you make and wherever you're at, if you're listening, wherever you're at in that decision-making process, you can do both, gain something from both experiences, and then uncover what it is that's going to work for you, whether it's running your own business or working in a corporate or like in a bigger organization. Like, you get to experiment. You can make those choices. So I love that. Thank you, Amber, for bringing that up.
Yeah. And even just speaking from experience. So during those 8 months that I was kind of freelancing, I was actively looking for a job. And I remember speaking to this one PR agency that I had interned with when I was in college. And they loved the fact that I had an agency and that I did this own thing. And it placed me kind of higher up on like that level of job of I technically had like a year and a half of experience, but I was coming in maybe with 4 years because I had done so much more. I ended up declining the job because I was like, you know what, I don't want to lose my clients. I really loved that. So it worked out. But yeah, if you're thinking about if you should do it, if it hurts you to go back, if you think you're starting at the bottom or people are going to look down on you, if anything, they'll look up at you because they realize you created a business. Doesn't matter how long you did it for, you still created a
Yeah.
business.
No, you know what? I think that's actually really important. And I say often, like, as an entrepreneur, every day is a school day. I mean, you learn
Mhm.
something every single day as a female founder, run your own business, man, learn curve, it's like straight up. And so you're right. Like, 1 year of running your own business is like 4 years in the corporate world because you're learning about all sorts of stuff and you're likely figuring a lot of it out on your own. Right. So I actually think that this is a super, super important conversation for anyone who's listening. Again, no matter where they're at, whether they're thinking about starting their own business, they got the side hustle, but they're not sure if they can leave the big biz, right? Like, I love that. That's fantastic. So now, like, tell us where are you at now? Like, who are you working with? What kind of stuff are you doing?
So, my agency primarily focuses on female founders and minority owned businesses. After leaving my agency working with big brands, I really wanted to support the
Yeah.
little man and
Yes.
just give people the platform where I know there's so many incredible brands out there that people just don't know about because they don't have the resources. So, that's kind of what I'm working towards. I've recently also pivoted and included a little bit of talent management. I have been able to create some really great relationships with creators and they came to me, they're like, I
Oh,
need help with my own business, I need help with business deals, and I'm like, I'll be honest, I've never done it before, but I'm willing to give it a try. If you want to be my guinea pig, let's go for it. So I do the traditional PR, podcast PR, influencers, digital marketing, and then now more recently we do some talent management for a few right now friends because I don't want to burnt out too far to anyone that I don't know and make any promises. So I'll let everyone know when I'm ready to take on more people for when
yeah.
I have a better lay of the land.
No, but you know what? I like that. I mean, you're never going to know if it's the right vertical for your business if you don't give it a shot. And I think being honest with people, hey, that's something that I'm willing to try if you're willing to invest just like I am. And let's figure it out together. I actually really like that approach, right? And maybe you build something that's really interesting and unique in the space.
Exactly. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, that could be a cool concept. And then I truly believe in signs. I don't really believe in coincidences. There was like 4 or 5 people in the span of a month that came to me and asked me this. And I was like, that's just, I thought of this a month ago, and now 4 or 5 people out of nowhere, it's not even like I brought it up to them in conversation, teased it anywhere, came to me. And I'm like, I feel like I kind of have to pursue this a little bit. It keeps coming back for a reason. So even if it fails, at least I can cross it off my list of, okay, I can't do that, but I can still do everything else that I offer.
Yeah, no, but so again, I really love the approach because I think we do get very locked in our, and a lot of this as female entrepreneurs really stems from our own internal conversation. This isn't anyone else telling us that we can't do it. It's us. It's our own saboteur that is saying, well, I really should, that's not really in my lane. Or maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. Or I don't have the education or skill or experience, so I can't. That really comes from our own brain. And what I love is that, in fact, you're looking at it as a gift or an opportunity, right? That this is something interesting. I want to get curious about this. I think it's worth a little investment of time if someone else is willing to give me the flexibility to make a few mistakes along the way. Yeah, I think that's really
And I
cool.
will say,
Yeah.
I say this to a lot of people I talk to, is this is not a mindset that I've always had. Everyone knows, if they know me, I'm very type A. I plan everything out. I need a to-do list. I need to know a plan. It's been through the year and a half of the business, 2 years since freelancing, that I've adopted the mindset of kind of just rolling with what comes.
Yeah.
Because before I was like, I can't do that. I don't have a plan. I don't have a full 30-page business plan.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take in what comes. And I think that also hurts a lot of people. They don't realize it takes time to adjust your mindset because you're not in it, and you don't adjust until you're truly in it. You can prepare only so much, but you got to learn to adjust as you're actually in the throes of it.
You know what? And it's really true. I mean, one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that you have to be nimble. You really do have to be able to change direction, make decisions, really calculate those risks and move forward, maybe not even having all of the information, as you've said, not having the 30, the truth is the 30-page business plan by the third month in your business isn't going to be worth the paper it's written on, is the truth. Like you really do have to, and you gain the skill of being very flexible and very nimble in your entrepreneurial journey. I think that that's actually a great point and a really great attribute. And you do have to let go of the control because that actually doesn't serve you in the evolution of your business and the evolution of who you are as an entrepreneur. Yeah, such a great point.
Exactly.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, these are really, I think you're really illustrating some beautiful things as you're telling us about your own journey. And I mean, let's be honest, running a business of any kind through COVID was incredibly challenging.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no one knew what was going to happen. So it was definitely something, it's a learning curve of starting a business, and it's a learning curve of navigating an entire just era of time that no one knew was happening.
No, it was very difficult for so many of us. And I think there's something to be celebrated there. I mean, I launched my business the fall of 2019. We all know what happened in March of 2020. And I forget at moments in time to stop and celebrate that I kept my business afloat through what is essentially 2.5 years of COVID. Like that in itself is an achievement. And if you are listening and you did that, high five to you, because that was really, really hard because no one knew what to expect tomorrow, let alone 3 or 4 months from now, or even in the following year. So I love that. We're going to talk next about Amber's leadership style. And she's already taken my leadership style quiz. She's going to tell us what her leadership style is and what that means for her. But if you haven't taken the quiz yet, you can find the link in the show notes. You can also go to highvoltageleadership.ca. And there's a little orange button at the top of the page. It says take the quiz. You can take it right now. It only takes a couple minutes. You can compare notes, see if you're the same style as Amber, and then join the conversation over on Instagram. So Amber, tell us, what's your leadership style? What does that mean for you?
So I took the leadership style quiz and I got coaching,
Yeah.
which I wasn't really sure what to expect, to be honest, when I took it. I've had very limited experience, to be honest, in a leadership role. And I do kind of find that the coaching label makes sense, given that in my agency, I do also offer consultations with people and I do sort of business coaching with some fellow entrepreneurs. So I think I kind of, in reading it, it made a lot of sense. And I can now, in hindsight, look back on it and I'm like, okay, that's why I act that way in this situation and all of that.
I love that. I love that it was a bit unexpected for you. I think that's really neat. So when
Mhm.
you, I mean, tell us a little more. I mean, you said that you do some consultations, some business coaching. What does that mean for you to be more of a coach-like approach in that?
I have found, so I have had a team, a little bit, a small team, really, at
Yeah,
my agency, whether they're interns or just someone part-time. And
yeah,
I found that my leadership style didn't really make sense for that team and
yeah.
how worked with them versus how I worked with like my business coaching clients. Um, I feel like the kind of advice approach and the guidance that way in this is my experience, this is how I do this is how we can apply it in this situation for your business works a lot better than with my team when I had it was teaching them and reviewing it and it's just the communication doesn't translate for those two things and I think finding my leadership style I wish I knew this beforehand because I think it would have helped me a lot more when I had my intern on so that I could help her more. Because obviously, I was trying to teach her
Yeah.
about the industry and what she should do, how we do this, how the business operates, what you should know about the industry.
Right.
But I realized things get lost in translation. And I definitely found like when talking with my coaching clients, we understood each other quite well because that was the dynamic. It was a coaching dynamic versus with my intern, it was a different dynamic and my brain just didn't click into it properly. And I think had I known what this style was, I would have been able to adjust how I communicated and how we worked together. So to be a little bit more efficient
I love
because she learned, she was great, she was incredible. But I think we could have sped up the efficiency. And I definitely think it was in due to me and in no way because of her.
Right. You know what? So thank you. I mean, that's a very vulnerable admission. But I do love, and that's like that I'm very I really appreciate that. In fact, the quiz gave you some insights. I mean, that's the whole intention. So I really love that it actually served you in creating some of that new awareness. And you bring up a great point, which is depending on the situation and the relationship, we have to lead in different ways. And with your intern, did you need to be more directive? Was it more pedagogy, teaching so that they could learn? Then when they have that basic knowledge, then you can delegate a bit more and follow up and provide that structure to be and then be supportive in their growth and learning. But the idea that you've got to start somewhere, and some of that is being a bit more directive. I want this done by Friday. Here's how you do it, because I know you're still a student. Whereas when we have different clients and we're working with them, we're asking them great questions, we're helping them with their own discovery. Yeah, maybe we're throwing out some ideas that they can leverage, some yes and kind of work. That's a different situation. But I love the connection that we have to be a different leader in a variety of different situations, and we got to bring different skills and tools to the table.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think, so sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you go.
I was going to say, I think it was great to learn because prior to my experience of starting the agency, I was an entry level person. So I didn't manage people. So it was also a learning curve of learning how to manage, how to lead while also balancing a business. So I think a lot of people kind of get a little nervous about that. I mean, I definitely was nervous of being a leader because I was still figuring things out too, but I
Yeah.
don't think that makes you look bad as a founder because we're all trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out how to be an intern at a PR agency, and you're figuring out how to run it. You're all learning, you're working together, and they're a lot more open to a nice, honest conversation. There were plenty of times I was like, look, I've switched up this process like 6 times. Please let me know what you think is better because you're doing the work. So I can give you 12 different ways to do something, but let's figure out what works. So I think also getting collaborative, if you're in a situation like me where you're figuring out your coaching, your leadership style, and you're also figuring out having a team, make it collaborative because the way that you think it will be may not be the way that is actually efficient or makes sense or is even in line with the work that you're doing. You got to learn to adjust. So adjusting in every phase of your business.
You know what? I really appreciate the way you position that. Because I think a lot of female founders, we haven't necessarily, we're not, I mean, some of us leave and we've been in pretty significant leadership roles, but for many of us, we haven't been, or we've had pretty bad examples of leadership. That happens too, right? And then we get into our own businesses and we do end up with, maybe we have a couple employees, we have a couple contractors. Yeah, maybe we have a student. And we really don't have a clear vision of how we are meant to lead. And I think just being honest about that and working collaboratively, as you've said, can be really powerful because you actually learn how to lead all together. And the most important job we have as leaders is building other leaders. That's our number one job, most important. And so when we're working together to build everybody's leadership, that's a really powerful team. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to ask you, I mean, this has been an interesting journey for you already. Where have you had some mistakes or missteps, and what have you learned from those?
I actually think we've kind of touched on it. I think I got a little bit stuck in a comparison loop
Mm,
with other people in similar industries and how they have grown their team.
yeah.
And I think I've jumped into building a team a little too early of, oh, this person had started this agency in 2019. They have this many employees now. I should hire these 2 employees. And yes, obviously, it's great to have employees. It's great to have them work for you, take some things off your plate so you can work more on building your business. But I think you need to realize that everyone's journey is different. So I think I got a little caught up in it. And then I had to take a step back a few months ago. And it was like, actually, I don't know if that makes the most sense
Mhm.
for me to have a team of this many when we're still building things out. The workload isn't that intensive. I learned that you don't need a team just yet. Of course, I'm kind of running in circles, but it's
Yeah.
good to have a team. It's good to know that you can delegate work. But I think it's good to take into account that you're on your own journey and that just because you see someone else started at the same time as you and they have 2 employees doesn't mean you need them. The work that you have may be different. The scope that you do, the relationships that you have with your clients, it could all be completely different. And I've learned to pivot. And because of that, I kind of adjusted even the business operations.
Yeah.
Since my interns left, I've adjusted those operations entirely because it kind of came to me that actually I don't know if I want to build out a whole team. Maybe I just want to be a solopreneur with my agency and maybe have an assistant here or there.
Yeah.
So the team building has been a big lesson that I've learned.
Yeah, I think and I love I love the way that you angled it because I think it is really about that comparison monster. It is about that should. I should have employees. I should have a team. I should have a bigger agency. I should have more. But we should all over the place. And the truth is, when we are trying to validate what we do based on external measures, that never works very well. We always come up lacking. And what we end up doing is hustling for our own self worth, our own validation. None of that is ever going to serve us in the long term. And so I think it is really important that before we decide to hire anyone, that we really understand why. What's the strategy? What is the business plan behind that? What are we trying to create? And how will adding people to that really accelerate the creation of that? And not only why we want to hire them, but what we're going to get them to do and who we are looking for. When we can answer some of those big questions, the what, the why, the how, those big, the 5 W's, right? When we can answer those really articulately, then we can make an educated decision about, is the time now to hire someone? And we have a pretty clear idea of who it is we need to hire. That's where we operate from a space of real strength and power. When we're adding people to our business because we think we should, because it looks good, and maybe our ego gets in the way a little bit, it's probably not going to work out the way we would like. And so I love that you bring that up, because I hear from women all the time. Some hire too early and they're not ready for it. They really aren't clear about being a leader. And if you have more than one person working in your business, you're a leader. Like it's just that simple. You actually are already leading yourself. And if you're not doing that very well, maybe you don't want to add somebody else just yet. Or I hear about women on the other side who don't build team fast enough and they end up burning out. So getting clear in that space about why you need people and who they need to be and how they're going to serve your strategy, that's a place where you can really be grounded and you can make great decisions. So thank you for bringing that, because that's a very personal thing to kind of put your hand up and say, I didn't do that right. And that's tricky, right? We want to be seen as being the smart, eloquent, creative women that we are. Sometimes it's hard to talk about what we don't do very well.
Definitely. And there are some times where you make the wrong decision.
Sure.
It's okay to go back on it. We make mistakes. I'm not saying I'm never going to have a team. It just wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted them to do, why I was bringing them on, the direction that I wanted to them grow in my own agency. I didn't have any of that planned out. I was kind of winging it while also building the business. And in turn, obviously, I tried to teach them as much as I could. And I mean, I asked them, they gave me good feedback, which is great. But I feel like I could have supported them probably a lot more had I had a little bit more direction in why they were there.
And how courageous of you to ask for feedback, because that's actually really difficult, right? It takes a lot of bravery to be able to ask for the feedback and then really be able to listen, because we take our businesses really seriously. We pour our heart and soul into these things. And then to have someone come to us and be like, well, actually, yeah, there's some things you didn't do very well. That is hard to take. So I think that that's beautiful. What a wonderful lesson to leave with everyone that's listening today, that it's okay to make mistakes and that it is worth it to ask for and receive the feedback. Really take it in. It's so valuable. And I love your poise and your courage in really receiving that.
Thank you. I have to thank my uncle for that. He is also an entrepreneur and he's obviously helped me out a lot. And he told me, he's like, you should be doing monthly check-ins with your team. If you're someone who's in your early stages of business, it's great to do monthly check-ins, kind of like a monthly review, but do a review of them and then of you, and then have action items for both parties so that they can know what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, where they can adjust, and you can adjust how you're leading them and managing them, helping them out, because maybe you don't realize you need to communicate more, or you're over communicating. They've gotten it and you don't need to talk to them. You just need to be like, hey, do this by Friday, and it's good. So I definitely think that's a really good thing. And when I had my interns, we were constantly doing that. I was definitely more of a review of myself, because I'm like, I want to make sure you're learning. I want this to be worth your time. So 100% monthly reviews, at least in your first few years, if necessary, but I definitely recommend it.
I wholeheartedly agree. What wonderful advice you received and you actioned it. Like, to be fair, you could have got the advice, completely ignored it. Yes, if it meeting with your people regularly to talk about what's going well, what's difficult, how you can help them, and then also from their perspective, what's happening for them that's really working, what can you work on to be a better leader? That's only going to enhance your team, and ultimately it's going to grow the value in your business. So how wonderful for you to really institute that and really leverage all of that information. I think that's just brilliant. Awesome. Amber, it's just been a pleasure to have
Thank
this
you.
conversation with you today. Thank you so much. You have brought so much to the table. I'm really grateful for that.
I'm glad I could give any advice. I'm always trying to help as many fellow entrepreneurs out or budding entrepreneurs with the lessons I've learned, because I know it would have been helpful if I had it. Sometimes you still got to go through it on your own and figure it out, but it's nice to kind of have those words in your back of the mind at the very least.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, thank you again for sharing all of those words with us today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.